All right, let's dive into one of the most frustrating computer mysteries out there. We're going to go way beyond the simple answers to figure out what is really going on under the hood when your machine just grinds to a halt and tells you it's out of memory.
So first up, let's talk about the symptoms. You know, that moment of pure frustration when your PC just gives up on you and you have no idea why. It's a feeling we've all had, and that's exactly where our investigation is going to start.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're deep in the zone, maybe you're wrapping up a big project, maybe you're in the middle of a game, and then, bam, everything just locks up. It's that universal feeling of tech betrayal. Yeah, these symptoms, they can feel so random, can't they? One minute, everything's running smoothly. The next, you're staring at a frozen screen or an app that just, poof, vanished. But you know, there's one clue here that's often overlooked. That little hard drive light, blinking away like crazy, even when nothing seems to be happening. That little light is telling you a story, and we're about to figure out what it's saying.
This is what you always hear, right? Oh, you just need more RAM. And look, while more RAM can definitely help sometimes, a lot of the time it's just a band-aid. It doesn't actually fix the root cause. The real story is so much more interesting, and it all starts with this secret feature your computer is using every single second.
So to really get what's going on, we need to pull back the curtain on your computer's secret backup plan. See, every modern operating system has this super clever trick up its sleeve to handle way more stuff than it physically should be able to. It's called virtual memory.
Basically, your computer is creating the illusion that it has this massive, almost endless supply of memory. And how does it do that? Well, it cleverly borrows a chunk of your much slower but way bigger hard drive and kind of pretends it's just an overflow area for your real, physical RAM.
Okay, here is the absolute best way to think about this. Your physical RAM, that's like a small, perfectly organized workbench right in front of you. Every tool you're using is right there, within arm's reach. It is incredibly fast. Now your virtual memory, that's called the page file, that's like a giant warehouse down the street. It can hold way more tools, but every single time you need something from it, you have to stop what you're doing, walk all the way down there, find it, and walk all the way back.
So, what happens when this clever little backup plan gets pushed way too far? Well, that's when this really helpful process turns into a total system-killing nightmare, and it has a name: thrashing.
Now, the key thing to get here is that this isn't normal. This is a sick state for your computer to be in. It gets trapped in this vicious cycle where it spends all of its energy just shuffling data back and forth between the fast RAM and the slow hard drive, and it has no time left to actually run your programs.
And these are the dead giveaways. Your task manager might show your CPU is working at 100%, but your apps are totally frozen. That little hard drive light that's blinking nonstop, that's the sound of your system just desperately trying and failing to keep up. A high page fault rate just means the system keeps needing data that isn't on the workbench, so it has to make that long trip to the warehouse again and again and again.
And that's our analogy in a nutshell. Instead of actually working at the bench, your computer is just sprinting to the warehouse to grab one screw, sprinting back, then realizing it needs a screwdriver, and sprinting back to the warehouse, over and over again. The result? Total and complete gridlock.
Okay, so what happens when things get so bad that even thrashing can't keep up? When the system is on the absolute brink of a total collapse? Well, it takes drastic, you could even say brutal, action. And that's when you meet the out-of-memory killer.
We are not talking about slowing down anymore. This is pure survival mode. The operating system has to make a hard choice to prevent a total system crash, and that choice isn't always pretty.
Have you ever had an application just disappear? Like, no error message, no warning, it's just gone. Well, it might not have crashed. It might have been assassinated. The OOM killer is basically the system's own internal executioner, sacrificing one program for the greater good of keeping the whole machine from crashing.
And it's not random. It's actually quite calculated. The system gives every running program a badness score. It looks at which programs are using the most memory and which ones are at least important to keep the system itself running. And then it just terminates the process with the highest score. It's a cold, logical decision to save the ship from sinking.
Okay, so now let's look at what happens when these ideas get misunderstood in the real world. This example, which is pulled straight from a tech forum, shows just how easy it is to accidentally make things so much worse.
Now this is a fantastic puzzle, right? A computer has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Task Manager says it's only using half of it, 8 gigs,
But Windows is still throwing up out-of-memory errors. And the key detail is that the user had followed some bad advice online and deleted his page file, his virtual memory. So what on earth is going on here?
And here it is, the solution. The problem has absolutely nothing to do with how much RAM is currently being used. It has everything to do with a concept called committed memory.
So here's the missing piece of the puzzle that explains everything. When a program starts up, it tells the operating system the maximum amount of memory it might ever possibly need. Windows then commits to that. It promises that memory to the program. This total memory budget that the OS has to work with isn't just your physical RAM sticks. It's your physical RAM plus the size of your page file.
And that was the user's critical mistake. By deleting his page file, he basically slashed his computer's total memory budget in half, or even more. So even though he had 8 gigabytes of physical RAM just sitting there, totally free, the system couldn't promise any more memory to new apps. It had already hit its new, lower budget limit, and it had no choice but to throw an out-of-memory error.
Okay, we've diagnosed the problem, we've looked at all the symptoms, and we've even examined a real-world case study. So now, let's talk about the cure, the right way to think about and manage your computer's memory.
All right, so here are the big takeaways. First, and I can't stress this enough, don't delete your page file. It's a critical part of how your system manages its entire memory budget. Just let the system manage it. It's usually the best option. Second, if your PC is slow, look for the signs of thrashing, that crazy disk activity. And finally, just remember that the problem might not be the amount of RAM you have, but how the system is being forced to use it.
And that's really the question, isn't it? Because now, with this knowledge, you're not just a user anymore. You're kind of a detective. You can look at the clues, the lag, that blinking disk light, the weird error messages, and you can actually understand the fascinating, complex dance that's happening between your RAM and your hard drive. Thanks for tuning in.